The fact that the universe is expanding was discovered in the 20th century through modern cosmology. However, there are those who claim that the Quran pointed to this truth 1400 years ago. In particular, verse 47 of Surah Adh-Dhariyat is frequently brought up in this context. The phrase wa inna la musi'un is interpreted as we are indeed expanding it, and it is argued that this is a miraculous reference to the expansion of the universe. But how strong is this claim? How well does the verse hold up in the face of criticism? Could it really be that the Quran foretold the expansion of the universe? In this video, we will closely examine verse 47 of Surah Adh-Dhariyat from linguistic, contextual, and historical perspectives, and present a strong case that it refers to the expansion of the universe. Let's begin. Verses 47 and 48 of Surah Adh-Dhariyat should be read together. We built the heaven with might, and indeed we are expanders. And the earth, we spread it out. How excellently we spread it out. There is a notable stylistic parallel between these two verses. 4 verbs are used: constructing the sky, expanding it, spreading out the earth, and preparing it. All of these are physical actions. In this context, the phrase expanding the sky must also denote a physical expansion. If one insists on interpreting we are capable as a metaphorical meaning, the stylistic coherence of the verses is disrupted. If 3 of the 4 actions are physical, interpreting just one as metaphorical breaks the textual harmony. In Arabic, the word mūsi'un is derived from the verb wasi'a, meaning to expand. Some classical exegetes interpreted it as expanding sustenance, or we are capable. But note, this does not mean the word's meaning changes. It shows that the contexts of its usage are diverse. A word having multiple meanings doesn't prevent us from finding its true meaning, as long as we analyze the context. Just like the word yad, hand, in Arabic can mean a physical hand or metaphorically power. The only way to determine whether the Quran is speaking literally or metaphorically is to look at the context. In verses 47 to 48 of Surah Adh-Dhariyat, the context revolves around physical actions: building, spreading, preparing. Therefore, expanding must also be understood physically. Some objections claim that the word sama, sky, in the Quran only refers to the atmosphere. So the expansion mentioned cannot be cosmic but must be local. However, this argument contradicts other Quranic verses and classical Arabic usage. For example, in Surah Fussilat, verses 11 to 12, the word sama is described as a state of smoke, dukhan, and then God shapes it into 7 heavens. Here, sama clearly does not mean just the atmosphere, but refers to the cosmic expanse. Therefore, in Adh-Dhariyat 47, sama can reasonably be interpreted as the expanding universe. It's often claimed that throughout history, this verse was always interpreted metaphorically, and the connection to cosmic expansion is a modern invention. But this is not true. For example, early scholars like Tabari and Ibn Kathir offered different interpretations of mūsi'un. Among them is the interpretation that God is expanding the heavens physically. Ibn Zayd, an early exegete, interpreted this verse to mean that the heavens are being physically expanded. So this interpretation is not a recent innovation. Moreover, the verse's context strongly supports it. Some critics argue that a similar phrase appears in the Torah, implying that the Quran is not original in this claim. But this objection cuts both ways. If the Torah truly speaks about the expansion of the universe, then that too is a miracle. How did it acquire this knowledge? And if the Quran borrowed from the Torah, then why did it include only the scientifically accurate parts and not the many errors also present in the Torah? Moreover, during the time the Quran was revealed, there was no known scientific knowledge or widespread myth about the universe expanding. This concept was not present among the companions of the Prophet either. Therefore, the information in the Quran is either original or divinely inspired. Another common objection goes like this: if a verse has multiple interpretations and only one aligns with science, it can't be called a miracle. But this logic is flawed. Every text with multiple meanings must be interpreted through context. The Quran itself says that the meanings of ambiguous, mutashabih verses can be known by those firmly grounded in knowledge. As human knowledge advances, the meanings of these verses become clearer. Surah Adh-Dhariyat, verse 47, falls into this category. When we read this verse with the knowledge provided by modern science, the meaning of physical expansion becomes more prominent. Alternative interpretations that contradict the context can be ruled out. Some have claimed that this verse contradicts verses like Surah Al-Imran 3:133, which says, "Race towards a paradise whose width is like that of the heavens and the earth." The objection is that if the universe is expanding, the dimensions of paradise should not be fixed. But this interpretation misunderstands the verse. The word ard in Arabic here doesn't necessarily mean width in a geometric sense. It can also mean extent or value. Moreover, the phrase is a simile, not a scientific measurement, so there is no real contradiction. Verse 47 of Surah Adh-Dhariyat is not merely a metaphor. When evaluated in terms of context, grammar, and the overall coherence of the Qur'an, it clearly points to a physical expansion. This aligns perfectly with modern scientific understanding, and the fact that the Qur'an conveyed this reality 1400 years ago is a strong indication that its source is beyond human origin. The Qur'an is not a text that coincidentally mentions accurate information. It is a systematic, consistent, and timeless revelation. If you found this content valuable, please consider sharing it so that more people can benefit. Because knowledge grows stronger when shared, and no falsehood can stand for long in the face of truth. Thank you for watching.